dear students of class 9, there was a request from one of my students to make a video on chapter 9 of history. The chapter is the Delhi Sultanate. See, after the development of Islam, after Islam developed in the Middle East, इंडिया में ये इस्लामिक कल्चर को इंट्रोड्यूस करने वाला भारते इस्लामिक कल्चर इंट्रोड्यूस করেছিলেন the Arab traders. These Arab traders entered India through the western coast because Arabia is just across the Arabian Sea. So they crossed the sea and they came to India. और गुजरात में, in Gujarat, the rulers of Gujarat and the Zamorins of Calicut, they patronized these Arab sailors. Initially, Islam had very little impact on India, but the Arabs did come to know about Indian astronomy, Indian mathematics, and other branches of knowledge which they carried back. And from these Arabs, the Europeans had a taste of. The Europeans who traded with the Arabians, they came to know about Indian astronomy, Indian philosophy, and Indian mathematics, so on and so forth. See, the kind of numerals that which we use these days, it is called Arabic numerals, is it not? But you must remember that this developed in India, and it was only carried, it is because the Europeans learned this numerical system from the Arabs that it was named the Arabic numerical system. But you must remember that its origin was in India, which was carried from India by the Arab traders. See, the first time the first Islamic invasion of India, traders जो था वो, that was a different issue. But the first Islamic armed invasion of India was carried on under Muhammad bin Qasim. Muhammad bin Qasim, in the 8th century, he was an Arabic ruler. In the 8th century, he invaded Sindh and Multan. The Hindu ruler of this region was called Raja Dahir. Raja Dahir was defeated, and in 716 AD, 716 AD में Muhammad bin Qasim defeated Dahir and conquered areas of Sindh and Multan. But the impact of this invasion did not last very long because Muhammad bin Qasim died, and with the death of Muhammad bin Qasim, the Arabic hold over Sindh and Multan was also over. But the first serious brush that India had with Islamic rule was during the time of Mahmud of Ghazni. Mahmud of Ghazni raided India several times. But you must remember that Mahmud of Ghazni did not come to India to establish any empire. He knew that the temple cities of India, the temple towns of India, the temples of India were sources of rich wealth. So he came here 28 times just to raid the temple towns, carry the money back to Ghazni, and build a great Ghaznavi empire. So he raided cities like Mathura, Kanauj, Gwalior, Somnath, and carried away great riches from this country so that he could set up a great empire with Ghazni at its center. The first Islamic ruler who came to India with an objective of setting up an empire here was the Turkish ruler Muhammad Ghori. His first attack of India was directed against, he invaded Multan in 1175 AD. In 1192, he defeated Prithviraj Chauhan. He invaded Delhi. Prithviraj Chauhan was the ruler of Delhi. He invaded Delhi for the first time in 1191, but he was defeated by Prithviraj. He came back again the following year, and this time he finally defeated Prithviraj, the Chauhan ruler of Delhi. And he came into control of a vast tract of land in the Delhi Ajmer area. Then he left one of his generals, Qutubuddin Aibak, as the ruler of his Indian possessions. अपना इंडियन पोजेशंस की देखभाल करने का रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी वो अपने वन ऑफ हिज जनरल्स कुतुबुद्दीन ऐबक के हाथ में छोड़कर ही रिटर्न्ड बैक टू हिज किंगडम. However, in 1194, again he came back to India to fight another Hindu ruler whose name was Jayachand, the ruler of Kanauj. Jayachand was defeated and Muhammad Ghori returned to Ghazni, but this time, as the Islamic rule was expanding gradually in North India, there were many revolts against Islamic rule, and Qutubuddin Aibak had to deal with it. Muhammad Ghori died in the year 1206, and as he had no male heir, as he had no son of his own to succeed him, Qutubuddin Aibak declared his freedom and he laid the foundation of the Delhi Sultanate. A new dynasty came into existence, and popularly this dynasty is called the slave dynasty, because this dynasty was founded by Qutubuddin Aibak, who was a slave of Muhammad Ghori. From 1206 to 1526, under the slave dynasty, there were 5 different dynasties that ruled Delhi between 1206 and 1526. 1206 আর 1556 মধ্যে প্রায় 5টা ডাইনেস্টি দিল্লি রুল করেছিল. এই যে পিরিয়ডটা 1206 থেকে 1526 এর যে পিরিয়ডটা, এই পিরিয়ডটাকে আমরা বলি দ্য এজ অফ দি দিল্লি সালতানেট. So by whom was the Delhi Sultanate established? Qutubuddin Aibak. See, from whom do we know about? What are our sources of knowledge regarding the Delhi Sultanate? A Delhi Sultanate সম্পর্কে আমরা জানতে পারি কোথা থেকে? There are many literary sources that give us a direct knowledge of this period. For example, Tariq-e-Firoz Shahi, authored by Ziauddin Barani, Prithviraj Raso, authored by Chand Bardai, and the writings of Minhas-uz-Siraj. Barani's work starts with the accession of Balban in 1266 and comes down to the 6th year of the reign of Firoz Shah. Chand Bardai was the court poet of Prithviraj Chauhan, a great soldier and ruler of Ajmer and Delhi. He defeated the Chandela king. We find in Prithviraj Raso an interesting account of Prithviraj's deeds and of valor and love. Another very important source of this period of the Delhi Sultanate was the accounts left by Ibn Battuta, who was a foreign traveler who reached India in 1333 and spent many years in the court of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So Ibn Battuta has also left a very important account of India in those times. So what are the accounts? What are the most important literary sources of the Delhi Sultanate? Number 1, Tariq-e-Firoz Shahi কে লিখেছে? Ziauddin Barani. Prithviraj Raso কে লিখেছে? Chand Bardai. Apart from that, works of Minhas-uz-Siraj and the works left by and the accounts left by the famous traveler Ibn Battuta. Apart from that, we have a lot of archaeological sources, old mosques, old minars and old palaces. These are also there, which monuments like the Delhi Sultans built massive monuments like Qutub Minar, and there are lots, Hoj Khas, Qutub Minar. There are forts and other things that were built by the rulers of the Delhi Sultanate. So these are the different sources from which we know about the Delhi Sultanate. Of this, let us read perhaps the most well-known of the architectural monuments, the architectural work, or the most well-known of the monuments built by the Delhi Sultans was perhaps the Qutub Minar. So let us read a little bit about Qutub Minar. Qutub Minar is situated in Delhi. कहाँ से ये এটা নামটা কোথা থেকে এলো কুতুব মিনার? কুতুবউদ্দিন was a Muslim saint of Ush near Baghdad. তো এই কুতুব মিনার, এই যে মুসলিম সেন্ট কুতুবউদ্দিন, ওনার নাম থেকেই এই মিনারটার নাম দেওয়া হয়েছে কুতুব মিনার। কুতুব মিনার is a circular structure that rises to a height of 72.5 meters. Qutub Minar is a circular structure rising to a height of 72.5 meters. এটার 5টা স্টোরি আছে এবং প্রত্যেকটা স্টোরি থেকে it has projecting balconies. A towerটার entrance is through a door on the northern side, and inside there is a spiral, that is round and round staircase to go up into the minar. It is made of mainly red sandstone and also marble and grey quartz. In fact, this tower to this day remains the highest tower made in India. There are many writings which are carved on the surface of the Qutub Minar, apart from flower designs, other images, etc., which are engraved on the tower. See, the various mosques, tombs, minars, palaces and other buildings that were made in those days had engravings of decorative letters, which ওটা সারফেসের ওপর অনেক লেটার্স, বিশেষত পার্সিয়ান ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ, ইন দ্য পার্সিয়ান অনেক লেটার্স ইনস্ক্রাইব করা ছিল। These inscriptions are very valuable sources to recreate the political, social and religious history of Delhi. ওই সময়ের যে দিল্লির যে সামাজিক, রাজনৈতিক, ধার্মিক যে দিল্লির যে ইতিহাস, সেইগুলো জানার জন্য এই প্যালেস, এই টাওয়ার, এই মিনারের যে দেওয়ালের ওপর পার্সিয়ান ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজে যে এনগ্রেভিংগুলো আমরা পাই, দ্যাট ইজ ভেরি ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট। দ্য হিন্দু স্ট্রাকচার্স অফ ইনস্ক্রিপশন ইন সংস্কৃত, আর ওই সময় যে হিন্দু স্ট্রাকচারগুলো তৈরি হয়েছে, ওই সময় অনেক হিন্দু স্ট্রাকচার্স ওয়ার অলসো কনস্ট্রাক্টেড ডিউরিং দ্যাট পিরিয়ড, তার ওপর আমরা সংস্কৃত আর সংস্কৃত অ্যান্ড হিন্দি অনেক এনগ্রেভিংস আমরা পাই। There are writings carved into the Qutub Minar also, and these also are a very important source of information regarding this period. The Pehova inscription, which is found of the Pratihara king Mahendrapala Pratihara king, ওনার একটা ইনস্ক্রিপশন ছিল যেটার নাম হচ্ছে Pehova inscriptions. এটা, according to this inscription, the Delhi Sultanate was founded in 736 AD by, আমি একটু ভুল বললাম, Delhi, the kingdom of Delhi, according to this inscription, the Pehova inscription of Mahendrapal, আমরা জানতে পারি যে the kingdom of Delhi, before the Muslims came, the kingdom of Delhi was founded in 736 AD by the Tomaras, which is a clan of the Rajputs. It mentions that the Tomaras ruled over the Haryana region with Dilika or Delhi as its capital. Then there is another Hindu inscription, যেটার নাম হচ্ছে the Sarban inscription, কারণ এটা দিল্লির কাছে, সাউথ দিল্লির পাশে সারবান নামে একটা গ্রামে পাওয়া গেছে। It contains a brief history of Delhi until the reign of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Muhammad bin Tughlaqের আগে পর্যন্ত দিল্লির ইতিহাস সম্পর্কে আমরা এই ইনস্ক্রিপশনটাই জানতে পারি। এছাড়া there are large number of inscriptions in Sanskrit, Arabic, Persian এবং few other local languages that were spoken in those days. See, if we come to the political history of the Delhi Sultanate, as it has already been mentioned that the Delhi Sultanate was founded, Delhi Sultanate শুরু হয়েছিল 1216 সালে। এই 1216 সালে মোহাম্মদ ঘুরির মারা যাওয়ার পরে মোহাম্মদ ঘুরির জেনারেল কুতুবউদ্দিন আইবক, উনি ফাউন্ড করেছিলেন, হি স্টার্টেড দ্য দিল্লি সালতানেট ইন 1206 AD, এবং উনি এটা প্রায় 4 বছর রুল করেছিলেন। 1210 সালে he died. During these 4 years, he did not have enough time, উনি যথেষ্ট সময় পাননি to establish a sound administrative system. He did not find enough time to establish a sound administrative system. আর এই কাজটার দায়িত্ব দিল্লি সালতানেটকে একটা সলিড ফাউন্ডেশনে দাঁড় করানোর যে দায়িত্ব, দ্যাট রেসপন্সিবিলিটি ফেল অন দ্য শোল্ডার অফ হিজ সাকসেসর, যার নাম ছিল ইলতুৎমিশ। সি ডিউরিং হিজ ব্রিফ রুল অফ 4 years, এই 4 বছরের যে শর্ট রুল, এই শর্ট রুলে কুতুবউদ্দিন আইবক দুটো মসজিদ বানিয়েছিলেন। একটা ছিল দিল্লিতে, যেটার নাম ছিল কুওয়াত উল ইসলাম, and the other was at Ajmer. He also started the construction of Qutub Minar, which was completed by his next ruler, who was also his son-in-law, Iltutmish. Iltutmish, দেখো কুতুবউদ্দিন আইবক মারা যাওয়ার পরে 1210-এ দিল্লির নেক্সট সুলতান হলেন ওনার ছেলে আরাম শাহ। বাট আরাম শাহ ওয়াজ নট ফাউন্ড কেপেবল, আরাম শাহ খুব কেপেবল ছিলেন না। So the nobles conspired against him. The nobles removed him from the throne and placed the son-in-law of Qutbuddin Aibak, Iltutmish, on the Delhi throne. And it is believed that it is Iltutmish who was the first Sultan of Delhi to found a solid administrative system and give some solidity to the Delhi Sultanate in India. He made Delhi his capital, and he was the first Turkish ruler যিনি ইন্ডিয়াতে একটা পিওরলি অ্যারাবিক কয়েনেজ, পিওরলি অ্যারাবিক কয়েন সিস্টেম উনি ইন্ট্রোডিউস করেছিলেন। আফটার দ্য ডেথ অফ ইলতুৎমিশ, his sons were not very competent, so after the death of Iltutmish in 1236, instead of his sons, his daughter Razia Sultana, who was very brave and a great soldier and statesman, Razia Sultana was made the ruler of Delhi. In fact, she was the only female ruler of Delhi in the entire Islamic period. Razia Sultana was a very good fighter. She frequently led her armies in the battlefield, but unfortunately, the noblemen of Delhi, they could not digest the fact, they could not accept, ওরা স্বীকার করতে পারলেন না, ওরা এটা সহ্য করতে পারলেন না যে a woman should rule them. So they conspired against her, and she was defeated by one of the rebels, যার নাম ছিল Altunia, the governor of Sirhind. However, later she married Altunia, and then the other nobles ganged up against these two, and in 1240, just after 4 years of coming to power, Razia Sultana was killed. After Razia Sultana, there was 6 years of internal strife, and after that, in 1946, the new king who took the throne was Nasiruddin Mahmud. Once again, Nasiruddin Mahmud was also not a very competent ruler. He was a pleasure-loving man. He was always lost in his pleasures. But under him, during his time, the kingdom was actually looked after by his father-in-law, who was a minister, who was his prime minister, যার নাম ছিল Ghiyas-Uddin Balban. In fact, at that time, the Delhi court was controlled by a very powerful gang of noblemen, Turkish noblemen, যাদের বলা হতো the gang of the 40. কি বলা হতো? Gang of the 40. A gang of the 40 leader ছিলেন Balban, and though Nasiruddin Mahmud was the ruler, he was a ruler in name only, because the administration was basically carried out by Balban. After the death of Nasiruddin Mahmud in 1266, Balban became the ruler of Delhi. He occupied a very stern, he realized, Balban বুঝতে পারলেন যে এই দেশটা ঠিকমতো চালাতে গেলে discipline has to be instilled, and if discipline has to be instilled, the first thing, প্রথম যে জিনিসটা করতে হবে, that is to instill a fear for the ruler in the minds of the subject. তাই জন্য he adopted a very severe and strict policy. You know, Balban যে পলিসিটা অ্যাডপ্ট করলো, এই পলিসিটাকে বলা হতো the policy of blood and iron. He established order in the neighborhood of Delhi and he feared and he instilled great fear. মানে উনি ওনার অ্যাক্টিভিটিস দিয়ে, ওনার স্ট্রিক্টনেস দিয়ে এই যে গ্যাং অফ দ্য 40 যারা নোবেলম্যান ছিলেন তাদের মধ্যে প্রচণ্ড ভয় ঢুকিয়ে দিলেন, বিকজ ফর ভেরি স্মল থিংস হি ইউজ টু ইনফ্লিক্ট সিভিয়ার পানিশমেন্ট. They were publicly flogged, punishments like being publicly flogged. Flogged মানে publicly বেত মারা হতো. The northwest frontier post, এবং at that time there was a great threat of Mongol invasions. প্রায় মঙ্গলরা আক্রমণ করতো, তাই জন্য নর্থ ওয়েস্ট বর্ডার অফ ইন্ডিয়া যেখান থেকে মঙ্গলরা আসতো সেখানে উনি অনেকগুলো কেল্লা তৈরি করে হি পুট a great military presence, খুব স্ট্রেনথেন করলেন উনি নিজের ডিফেন্সটা on the northwest border. Balban finally died in 1287. Balbaner jara successor, they were very very weak, and finally during the rule of Balban's grandson, যার নাম ছিল Kaikubad, he was murdered in 1290. And now after the slave to till Balban, from Kutubuddin Aibak to Balban, Kutubuddin Aibak, Iltutmish, Razia Sultana, then after that you have Nasiruddin Muhammad, Balban. These 5 rulers are included in the slave dynasty. And after the murder of Balban's grandson in the year 1290, the slave dynasty ended and now a new dynasty came to power in Delhi. This dynasty was known as the Khalji dynasty. The first ruler of the Khalji dynasty was Jalaluddin Khalji. He ruled for a very brief period of only 6 years and then he was murdered. It is said that he is murdered by his nephew. বলা হয় যে ওর নেফিউ আলাউদ্দিন খিলজি, ভুল বললাম, হ্যাঁ সরি ঠিকই আছে, নেফিউ and son-in-law, his nephew and son-in-law Alauddin Khilji murdered Jalaluddin, and Alauddin Khilji became the next ruler of the Delhi Sultanate of the Khalji dynasty in 1296 AD. Soon after becoming the Sultan, he embarked on a course of conquests. উনি ওনার সাম্রাজ্যের সীমা বাড়ানোর জন্য চারিদিকে কনকোয়েস্ট শুরু করলেন. প্রথমেই উনি দিল্লি এবং মালওয়া রিজন উনি জয় করলেন. He defeated the Rajput ruler of Ranthambore and Chittor, এবং ডেকানের 4টা পাওয়ারফুল রুলার, the Yadavas of Devgiri, the Kakatiyas of Warangal, the Hosialas of Dwarasamudra and the Pandya kingdom with its capital in Madurai, এই 4 জনকেও উনি পরাজিত করে he turned these 4 wealthy kingdoms into his vassals. No army from North India had ever managed to conquer such huge territory in South India. South Indian conquest of Alauddin, এই যে আলাউদ্দিনের Deccan conquest, this Deccan conquest was led by Malik Kafur. Malik Kafur was a slave whom Alauddin had got from Gujarat, and Malik Kafur led the Deccan conquest of Alauddin. Malik Kafur captured immense riches from the Deccan, hundreds of elephants, thousands of horses, huge amount of gold and jewelry. But Alauddin realized that it would not be possible for him to control the Deccan from far away in Delhi. তখনকার দিনে দিল্লিতে বসে ডেকান কন্ট্রোল করা ওনার পক্ষে সম্ভব হবে না, এটা আলাউদ্দিন বুঝেছিলেন. Therefore, he remained happy if the rulers of the Deccan acknowledged the lordship of the Delhi Sultan and paid him regular tribute in lieu of peace and protection. During Alauddin's time, the Mongols once again attacked India, but this time they were soundly beaten. Alauddin also took great care to improve the administrative system of Delhi. He introduced many revenue reforms and he took solid administrative steps so that his resources were increased. He revoked the system of land grants made as gifts to Muslim landlords or Muslim, in earlier days, the rulers would grant land to important Muslim nobles and important Muslim clerics. The treatment so these were all revoked, these lands were all taken back by Alauddin. And the treatment meted out to Hindu landlords বলা হতো Chaudhuris বা Mukaddams. Alauddin dealt very harshly with the Hindu Mukaddams and Chaudhuris. All their lands were taken back, and Alauddin, not only that, Alauddin, he wanted to establish a huge, standing army, and he paid regular salary to his army, but to see to it that his army men, his soldiers and also the common people could manage their affair within their limited income, Alauddin became the first ruler in history of India to introduce some kind of a market regulation. What he did? What is the meaning of market regulation? He laid down the price of all important articles like food grains, sugar, cooking oil, cloth, horse, cattle, slaves, and all other commodities. সব commodity দামগুলো নির্ধারিত করে দেওয়া হলো, and the traders had to sell those commodities only at those prices. যে ট্রেডাররা বেশি দাম নিত, he dealt very harshly with them. There were two officers, যাদের নাম হলো দিওয়ান-ই-রিয়াসত and সাহানা-ই-মান্ডি. এই অফিসাররা নজর রাখতো যে কোনো ট্রেডার এই যে মার্কেট রেগুলেশনগুলো এগুলো ভায়োলেট করছে কিনা. Alauddin was a very, very efficient ruler, and under his rule, the power and prestige of the Delhi Sultanate once again became high as it was under Ghiyasuddin Balban. After Alauddin's death, his successors were not very successful, so the Khalji dynasty was soon replaced, and now a new dynasty came to the Delhi throne. A dynasty naam chilo the Tughlaq dynasty. The first ruler of the Tughlaq dynasty was Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, who came to power in 1320. Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq also died died after a short time. He ruled for only 5 years. It is said that he died in an accident when a pavilion which was built to welcome him for his victory in Bengal collapsed over him and killed him. It is said that this accident, it was not an accident, but this accident was purposefully, it was caused purposefully by his nephew, whose name was Muhammad bin Tughlaq. After the death of his uncle Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, Muhammad bin Tughlaq became the ruler of the Delhi Sultanate in the year 1325 and ruled for 26 years till 1351. Muhammad bin Tughlaq was a very educated man, and he had many innovative ideas, but unfortunately he could not implement those ideas. There was nothing wrong with his ideas, but he could not implement those ideas successfully. Number one, in 1326, in order to increase his resources, in 1326 he increased the taxes, the land revenue of the region of the Doab region, that is the region between the Yamuna and Ganga. Now there was nothing wrong in it because this area was really very fertile and the farmers, peasants living there were very prosperous. But unfortunately, this was implemented at a wrong time because there was a severe drought and crop failure in the region at that time. The farmers were in no position to pay the extra demand made on them, and when they could not pay, the Sultan's tax collectors came down on them very heavily. They were merciless on the cultivators, and obviously the cultivators were forced to give up their land and run away. When the Sultan realized his mistake, he tried to help them by giving them loans to buy seeds, bullocks, etc. Arrangements were also made to dig wells for irrigation purpose, but the damage was already done. And since the people had nothing to eat, the loan that was given by the Sultan, they used to buy their basic needs, and the agriculture in this region suffered greatly, and the situation remained like this for several years. Second was the transfer of capital. See, in 1327, Muhammad bin Tughlaq realized that Delhi was very close to the northwestern border and very near, and it was too close to the border so that it could be invaded by the Mongols at any time. Secondly, Delhi was to the north, and he wanted to shift to a place which was located more centrally in his empire, and therefore he wanted his capital to be shifted to a South Indian town called Devagiri, যেটার উনি নাম দিলেন দৌলতাবাদ. It was not a bad idea. He could have done it. But how should it have been implemented? কি করতে পারতেন? He could have only shifted there himself, and he could have shifted the government offices and important officials to Delhi. But what he did, he asked all the citizens of Delhi, thousands and thousands of citizens of Delhi were asked to move to Daulatabad, which was 1500 kilometers from Delhi. And in those days, it was not at all easy to travel such a long distance. Excuse me. The people of Delhi who did not want to shift were mercilessly forced to do so. And thousands of people died on the way to Daulatabad. When they went to Daulatabad, they found it was not very suitable. There was water crisis, the temperature was not suitable, and the Sultan himself did not like Daulatabad very much, so he decided to reshift to Delhi. And he again asked all the people to march 1500 kilometers back to Delhi. Very few of the people who had reached Daulatabad now managed to reach Delhi, and Delhi lost its glamour, Delhi lost its shine altogether, and the scheme was a utter failure. Next comes the introduction of token currency. What is this token currency? In 1329, the Sultan introduced token currency. For example, see, nowadays what currency we use? Paper currency. The 10 rupee paper currency, what does it signify? Mane ki? That currency represents 10 rupee worth of gold. But instead of using gold, we use the paper currency. This is called token currency. Similarly, in those days, all dealings were done in gold and silver coins. But what Muhammad bin Tughlaq did in 1329, he introduced token currency by saying that brass and copper coins henceforth would serve the same purpose as the same function as gold and silver coins. This experiment also failed because in those days, foolproof, proper minting system was absent. So, all the houses turned into mint. What people did? They started minting coins out of brass and copper in their own house, and they started using it in the market. So, the market was full of forged coins. There was great inflation, and trade and commerce came to a standstill. Besides, foreign merchants refused to accept these brass and copper coins. When the Sultan realized his mistake, he declared that everybody should return their copper and brass coins, and he would give them gold and silver coins of equal value. But now what happened? Much larger amount of brass and copper coins than had been minted by the Sultan himself. If the Sultan had minted 1000 coins, now 10,000 coins came back, and therefore he had to pay gold and silver equal to the money brought in, and the treasury became absolutely empty. After the Tughlaqs, after Muhammad bin Tughlaq, Firoz Shah Tughlaq, a cousin of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, came to power in Delhi. During this time, the empire had already started breaking up. Firoz was a distinguished military leader, but unfortunately, he did not make any serious effort to recover those territories which were lost. However, he was a great builder. He built many beautiful gardens, schools, mosques, and irrigation canals. As such, agriculture flourished in his area, and there was a general prosperity in the kingdom. Firoz Shah Tughlaq died in 1388. After his death, he had no strong successor. This time shrunk to a very smaller area, and the Delhi Sultanate came to disintegrate. Provincial governors, the governors of the various provinces and other smaller chiefs, taking advantage of the situation, they revolted. In the meantime, in 1398, Taimur the Lame invaded Delhi, and Delhi was left in, he caused great massacre and destruction of Delhi, and Delhi was reduced to a very poor state. Still, Delhi Sultanate managed to linger somehow. The Tughlaq kingdom, the Tughlaq dynasty, managed to carry on somehow till 1413. And in 1413, the last Tughlaq ruler, after Taimur had invaded India and taken control of Multan, Lahore and Dipalpur, before leaving India, he had left the governance of this area in the hands of one of his deputies, whose name was Khizr Khan. In 1414, Khizr Khan attacked the last Tughlaq ruler of Delhi and laid the foundation of the Sayyid dynasty. The Sayyid dynasty remained in power between 1414 and 1451, but in 1451, this dynasty, the Sayyid dynasty, was replaced by the Lodi dynasty. The first Lodi ruler of Delhi was Bahlol Lodi, who had been the Afghan governor of Lahore and Sirhind. He seized Delhi in 1451, he died in 1481, and he was succeeded by his son Sikandar Lodi. Sikandar Lodi is believed to be the greatest of the Lodi kings. He suppressed the rebellions in capital Delhi and also in Agra, and after his death, his eldest son Ibrahim Lodi came to power. But unlike his father, he could not suppress he could not establish an working relationship with, he could not keep the Afghan and Turkish nobles happy. He could not recover. He received a crushing defeat from the hands of Rana Sangha of Mewar. He also became enemies with the governor of Punjab, Daulat Khan Lodi, and it is this Daulat Khan Lodi who invited Babur to invade India, and Babur came from Kabul to India to fight with Ibrahim, and the battle was fought in 1526 on the plains of Panipat. Here, Ibrahim received a crushing defeat and was killed, and thus the Delhi Sultanate came to an end, and with the end of the Lodi dynasty, the foundation of another powerful dynasty was laid in India, and this dynasty was the Mughal dynasty. In 1526, the Lodis were defeated in the first battle of Panipat, and Mughal rule was established in India. So, this is the chapter, friends. Please go through it. If you have any problem, you can give me a call. I will further explain.